So there's this guy I know, and he's really smart and really insightful, and just one of those just overall just a really cool guy. So none of you who I know here, sorry, don't get your hopes up. But and I talk to him a lot about just a lot of things, and most recently it's been about my job situation and how hard it is to find a job, and sort of getting down on myself, and how I really just don't think that there's much more that I can do on my end. And in his very, in a way that he knows he can talk to me, in his Dr. Phil kind of wisdom, says, just telling people that you're hungry isn't going to get you a pastrami sandwich. It might get you fed, but if you want a pastrami sandwich, you got to open your mouth and say it. It's like, pastrami. I can relate to that. And I sort of took that and started to apply it to different aspects of my life as it is right now. And how I really think that it does apply to everything that goes on here at Story Slam every month, because I really feel like we all have a story to tell. I have my story to tell, and it's my responsibility to tell it. I can't sit back, I can't wait for someone else to tell it. And by all means, if someone else would tell it, how accurate would it be? And would it be a pastrami sandwich? Answer, probably not. So what I decided to talk about tonight, because I can talk about anything, I could shoehorn any other story into any of the other topics we come up for the next year. But for this one, I just wanted to talk about, how I really feel as though I came to be what some would call a storyteller. And in a way, sort of say thanks unofficially and sort of pay an indirect tribute to the people throughout my life who I've sort of done a, unofficial apprenticeship under, learning how to tell stories. And first and foremost, that would be my family. So I come from a big Italian family, and it's sort of like, have you ever heard anyone say, I've come from this really tiny Italian family? So let's just go back and say, I come from an Italian family. So waking up every morning is enough reason to open your mouth and tell a story. But there are certain occasions and traditions and events that we have that just naturally lend themselves to telling a story. And one in particular is what, for East and I also call, what do we call it? The baking of the Italian wedding cookie. And so the Italian wedding cookie is this sort of puffed vanilla cookie, sort of finger-shaped, that's dipped in royal icing and then dipped into coconut, making this like pretty little pom-pom thing. And although despite the name, it is not just relegated to Italian weddings or Italian cookies or whatever. It's for every event that we have, any type of celebration. For bridal showers, baby showers, baptisms, communions, confirmations, the Italian wedding cookie is made. So you figure they're big events. We're not baking 24 cookies. We're talking like 300 plus cookies. And you figure 300 plus cookies are not coming out of one set of hands. It is a family affair when we sit down to make cookies. So in my house, it was always my mom, my aunt. My sisters always seemed to be someplace else when this was going on. My grandmother, and then my maternal great aunts. And everybody had their job. There were those who mixed the dough, those who baked the cookies, and then everyone else would sit around the kitchen table. And you would take the cookie and you would dip it into your bowl of icing, into the coconut, off to the side. Icing, coconut side, icing, coconut side. And you figure this is a lot of cookies, so we weren't done this in 45 minutes. This was something that was a 3 to 4 hour event. So over the 3 to 4 hours of the hands doing this, the mouths are doing this. And it was during that time, because I was very young at this point, I was an observer. And in doing that, I learned the bulk of my family history through this cookie making, because you figure I had great aunts there who had been making these cookies for 40 years. So they had 40 years of weddings, of christenings, of bridal showers, of everything to talk about. And that's what was talked about. So I learned a lot of history, a hell of a lot of gossip, just sitting there quietly, being the cookie apprentice at the time, with the icing up my arms and whatnot. But so right around the age of 8, I sort of, again, I wasn't sure what was going on there, but I knew that something in fact was going on that I was part of. And I sort of felt that it was my time to be part of that. And so there I am, between my, not so slender aunts, sort of wedged there with their big arms, bigger than me, sort of stuck there. And I thought it was my time. It was my time to speak up and sort of just become, again, part of whatever this was. And I'd say, I know it was a Saturday. I don't know what the event was that we were doing the cookies for, but Saturday's very relevant. And I said, it's a really good thing that everyone came over on a Saturday because Mom doesn't feed us on Saturdays. And my mom, who had been leaning on the counter at that point, gets to, her back goes up and her brow goes down, and all the heads sort of turn towards her and give this, But they all knew the backstory as to why we weren't fed on Saturdays, which was 10% true, but at the time seemed 100% true. And so my great aunt Sandy, she's sitting next to me, she goes, well then in that case, baby, eat some more cookies. And everybody kind of laughs and chuckles, and at that point I realized that, again, I don't know what it was, but I was finally part of what was going on. And from that point on, and every, subsequent cookie baking and decorating after that, I learned and developed the skills of not only how to, what I would say, tell a good story, but more importantly, how to really appreciate when I hear a good story. And I think that that's really what everyone was here for tonight, to come out, to sit back, to relax, and just listen to a bunch of interesting people talk about a bunch of interesting things. So, now if someone could order me a pastrami sandwich, we're golden. But other than that, thank you much.